Good evening and welcome to the live exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela.
And I'm Robert Pierce.
And today we are looking at leadership. When leadership fails, lead your own.
Yeah. Self-leadership.
I mean, look, we've been put in this position where, we know and we see loud and clearly that decisions that are being made are not for our well-being. And so at some point, we've just got to stop following blindly, which we never should have been doing anyway.
Exactly.
And just do what we know is right for ourselves, for our families, for our loved ones.
Yeah, I remember in the church, they used to say after the announcements, govern yourself accordingly.
Govern yourself accordingly.
I
got another one. I got another one from the church. Everything is permissible for me, but everything is not good for me. And I know I'm saying it wrong, but I will not be mastered by anything. And everything's permissible. Governor said, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it. But it's not beneficial.
It's not, that's the word, but everything is not beneficial.
It's not beneficial. And so, we've been seeing the pictures out there. The streets are flooded, clubs open, pools open.
Comedy clubs.
It's the summer season now. But, we still have to be careful.
It's interesting. Not much has been said about it being correlated with Memorial Day, but I don't know that there's a coincidence here that, let's open everything up. Memorial Day weekend.
Economics. This is economics. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So we've got a really great show ahead. We're going to really, with the first half of the show, we're going to talk leadership. We're going to do some comparison between what the sports industry is doing and what governors and the politicians are doing. Yeah. And there's a very big difference. It's almost like they're two different worlds. So we're going to look at that. I've got some leadership tips from watching Phil Jackson, just kind of some leadership.
The Last Dance. What a great documentary. We hope we talk about that some more.
Oh, that's yes. We're definitely going to talk about that. And then the second half, we're going to look at some things that we really didn't expect to be a side effect of COVID-19, which is parenting, co-parenting. What happens when that other parent wants to pick the kid up, but they don't really have the same philosophy you do in terms of taking the precautions.
Yeah, and social distancing, right?
Yes, there have been some court cases around that already. And so, so we're going to delve into that with a psychiatrist. I think she'll clarify that for us, but she's going to be on the show, Dr. Shadeiyah Edwards. And then on this first half of the show, we're going to have sports analyst Emmanuel Glaze to,
awesome.
Yes. So got a lot of stuff for you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
All right. Well, stay with us.
We'll be back.
Wow.
Welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Robert Pierce.
I'm Dr. Pamela.
And today, our show, we're going to have two topics. Our first hour, we're going to talk about how sports are leading the way in this COVID-19 pandemic. And then in the second hour, we're going to talk about co-parenting through the COVID-19. We have two amazing guests that we're going to bring on shortly. But right now, we're going to go into trending topics. Dr. Pam, what you have for us?
Yeah, well, what we just heard now was from he's I just had it up and then I just lost it, but he is a state representative, I believe, Kenyatta, and he basically stood up against the rapid, irresponsible mode of reopening. And what he was saying is that, look, I care about people in my district, and I want to make sure that if we do this, because clearly we're going to do this, let's do it correctly. And right before what you heard just now, what he also said was that it is really an elitist move to demand that everything gets opened up, meaning that the people who are really going to be impacted, they really want to be served. So the elites are like, I need service. I need people to cut my hair. I need people to serve me at restaurants. And by whatever risk, it doesn't matter, just make it happen. And so these are the people who are on the front line are the very people we don't want to pay more than, $15 an hour, the very people who we don't take into consideration when we pass these laws. And so I think it was quite profound that he would stand up and that he would say, exactly what needs to be said. Of course, he was mocked. Of course, he was booed. But I think it was quite courageous.
Yeah, I agree 100% with everything he said. I think we're being very irresponsible. And again, I keep saying it just shows how much economics plays into the decisions of every decision in our country. We'll disregard everything, our own lives, in order to make a buck. Sports is coming back, and we're going to talk about it. Some of them may be coming back a little too quickly, just because of a dollar. You know what I mean? We can say it's for a lot of other reasons, but no, it's because of the dollar. They're counting their money. And, we have to take a step back. We're killing each other, literally, because we're running out just because we feel we want to be out in the street. And you can go out, but let's do it responsibly. And unfortunately, that's not what's happening.
Well, it's interesting because the messages, as we know, keep changing. But what I guess is disappointing to me is that even the medical experts that we're counting on, and I hate to place judgment because I know the kind of pressure that they've been under, but Dr. Birx, Dr. Fauci, both of them have kind of backtracked a bit from that whole, we need to shelter in place, we need to let the medicine dictate what we're doing. There was actually a headline where Dr. Birx was asked by a reporter, so why all of a sudden, a few months ago you were saying, shut everything down. The numbers are higher now. And, now it's a different message. It's a different story. And she actually effectively did not answer the question. She just, kind of rambled on about.
Well, we know the pressure. Yeah. She can't say what she may want to say.
I know.
But, the pressure. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, and that's why I try to empathize because I do get, this is their entire careers on the line because of a toxic leader.
They could end up in the North Pole somewhere at a waypost, just literally, and so, it's tough.
Well, we do have our first guest, Emmanuel Glaze. He is a sports analyst, among many other things. And so we are definitely looking forward to the conversation with him. We're going to bring him on.
Yes.
Hey, Emmanuel.
What's going on, Emmanuel?
What's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I'm doing great, man. Just great. I hear y'all talking sports. I'm glad y'all brought me on so we can so I can jump into the topic.
Well, let me quickly introduce you, and then we can go ahead and get in this. So, Emmanuel Glaze serves as the founder and co-host of the Crush Sports Talk, as well as the founder and CEO of Optimize the Vision. His mantra, to have the dopest sports show on radio, guides Emmanuel's tireless efforts to develop and grow the Crush Sports Talk. Like any good point on the hardwood, his vision and keen insight into the nuances of the show keep it running like a well-oiled machine. Now, Optimize the Vision is guided by its motto that sports plus exposure can lead to countless possibilities. The goal of the organization is to enhance the visions of children's futures by exposing them to countless opportunities that the world of sports can provide. This is created by taking middle school kids from Metro Atlanta to various sporting events while also providing a behind-the-scenes experience to provide the participants with a more holistic view of the sporting world. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that intro. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Live exchange. What's up, Robert? You all in the business now. I'm glad to be here to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing well, bro. Everything's going well.
I love it. So this is quite an initiative to the Optimize the Vision and get kids out there. So we're going to go to a break, but I would love to hear a little bit more about it. And Robert has said he hopes we talk about The Last Dance.
Last Dance.
I hope we talk about it. And I know you got some things to say about it. So when we come back, we're going to hear about Optimize the Vision and talk about The Last Dance.
We'll be back.
All right, welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela.
I'm Robert Pierce.
And today we are joined by Emmanuel Glaze, sports analyst. I gave you that name. I don't know if that's the name you gave yourself, but I just said that's what he is. So, as well as CEO.
I take it, Dr. fan. You know, that's what we'll take. I take it.
I love it. And yeah, he spent a lot of years really dissecting sports and really bringing up the names of local coaches and athletes and getting us up to speed on what's going on, not just locally, but nationally as well. So I think it's a well-earned designation. So tell us tell us about Optimize the Vision. I'm sure that it's probably been impacted by COVID, but tell us a little bit about Optimize the Vision.
Well, Optimize the Vision is a nonprofit organization that I created to merge the world of sports and what I am trying to take it to show that it can do more off the field as well as on the field. So, prior to becoming a sports analyst and doing radio, I used to coach middle school football. And for 10 years, I did that. And then when I went into the sports analyst business, I was seeing all of these events. I was covering the Hawks and Falcons and Braves. And I was like, how can I merge these two worlds together? I found that at the middle school level was just a very impressionable age for kids. And if I can get that and show them not only what happens on the field of sports, but what can happen off the field, merge those two things together, I felt like we can expose these kids and show them different ways of life. And even during the COVID-19, when that hit, we still do virtual shows and we still have people come on from the sports world and talk to the kids. So now we just have to do it through a virtual platform. So it started back in January 2019. We've been going a year now. Yeah. And we had to, and it's been awesome. I've got total 14 kids in the program now, and they're from 5 different counties within the Metro Atlanta area, and we are just couldn't be any more blessed to be able to do what we're doing. So. I love
it. Well, we are going to pivot just a little bit and go into the research.
In the interest of science.
All right. So today's research is brought to you by Lemon Butter Cream, by Peasy Heads Lemon Butter Cream. I'm like butchering it, but it's brought to you by Peasy Heads. They are the creators of Lemon Butter Cream, but also a full service natural hair salon that handles all kinds of different types of natural hair. So if you are somebody who is interested and, right now not doing hair, but definitely providing hair products, go ahead and get those products because we know your hair needs it. We know it does.
You need it.
So the research today is just really kind of looking at this idea, the science behind why we can't look away from tragedy, why we can't. Now, some of us, like Robert, has been really good at it. When I talk about tragedy in this sense, we're talking about, the circus that is the government and all of the different things that are going on. And so for many of us, we can't look away. It's like, okay, what are they saying today? What's going on today? And, and I'm kind of somewhere in between. Sometimes I'm done with it and I'm good. And other times I'm like, well, let me just try this press conference and see what's going to happen. And then of course it's exactly what
fails you every time.
It fails me every time. But there's actually science behind why we can't look away from tragedy or disaster. And basically, our brains are conditioned to look for danger so that we can protect ourselves. And so when we see danger, we want to know more about it. We zero in on it to just kind of analyze it, make sure that we're safe, and then, kind of keep going, which makes a lot of sense as we're talking about, what's happening with COVID and the fiasco that's happening, on the leadership level. We check in every now and then to see, wait, let me see let me gauge the level of danger here. And then, some people stay plugged in, other people kind of check out after they've checked. So that's kind of the overarching reason why scientifically, biologically, we can't always just look away from danger. The other reason is that looking at disasters stimulates our empathy, which is a good thing. And we are programmed as humans to be empathetic. So while we might be really angry at what the leadership is doing, our understanding and our willingness to pay attention to what the leadership is doing enables us to focus on who is being harmed by it. and allows us to, exercise our empathy for those people. So those are just a couple of reasons. I'm curious to know, what both of you think of this and how this kind of resonates with you.
Well, I always found it fascinating, even in the context on the highway, rubbernecking when there's an accident. You know what I mean? How many times, the accident's on the side of the road, but traffic is backed up solely because people are looking. They're slowing down to look, to assess the situation. And I've done it so many times. I've just in passing, I've evaluated the whole situation, investigated it, and could tell you who's at fault. You know what I mean? Just by driving by. And so it just resonates with me that, naturally we try to assess and look at things to see, okay, how do I avoid that danger? And then again, as you said, which is even more important, we look for someone to empathize with, to look for the victim, to say, okay, I have compassion for them. We need to do something, whether that anger, whatever that emotion is, whether we do something with it or not, we feel we have to display it.
We've got our arm to do so when we know what's going on. Sometimes. One thing I have to throw in here real quick is this reminds me of a date that I was once on. It was a one and done date. We went out one time and I was done. But this was in college, and we're going to the movies. We're walking down the street, and at the corner, there's this horrific looking car accident. The cars look like mangled. It was awful. Yeah. And do you know what this man did? This guy did, this kid did. he
walked up
his
there
hands together and he said, "Ooh, carnage. Let's go over there."
Wow.
Yeah, that was the last date.
But that says a lot about your character right there.
But at the end of the day, he also took his fake tooth out to show me that he has a fake tooth. But that's a whole other story.
Oh boy. That just went left, Emmanuel. You saw how it left that way. That
went
real loud.
I was in college. All right. So, all right. Well, we need to go to break. And when we come back, we are going to discuss the last dates.
Yes.
All right. Welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela.
And I'm Robert Pierce.
And we are joined by Emmanuel Glaze. He's he's going to be back with us in a second. But today we are talking about what happens when the leadership fails. When the leadership fails, we've got to lead ourselves. We've got to find ways to govern ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
And I thought that and I really don't want to take all the credit for this because you brought it up last week, Robert, just with the sports and in terms of how sports are really, I think there was some demonstration in The Last Dance of Phil Jackson and his leadership. And man, if he could just have been president for the last 3 months, I wonder.
It just highlighted he was able to manage so many different situations, personalities, egos. And he did it with the team in mind always. And, they won 6 championships. Could have been way more, but, that's a whole nother topic.
Right. Well, yeah. And
that we can talk about.
I know, right? Well, payscale.com published an article that looks at 11. Hello there he is. You're back. So we just delved into The Last Dance and Phil Jackson and his leadership. And one of the things I was just going to point out, just kind of maybe a starter to the conversation, was that payscale.com published an article that gave 11 leadership lessons from NBA coach Phil Jackson. And I think it's really interesting because the leadership that he's showing, or that he has shown, he was my favorite coach. I really followed him, both when he was with the Bulls and when he was with the Lakers. But be genuine. I'll just fly through them. Be genuine. Share the power. Everyone is unique. So really honor those unique attributes that everybody brings. Empower team members. This is a big one. And again, I can't help but to compare what's happening, with our White House leadership. Empower team members. You don't have to have all the power. Make it sacred. And I'll just say what it says here. He says that playing basketball is actually a very mundane activity. So he wanted to bring meaning to the game. So he incorporated meditation and other rituals into practice as a means of making the sport sacred. Whoa. Becoming one entity, showing compassion, focus on the team and not the goal, prepare for chaos. Hello.
Yeah.
Sometimes just do nothing. So like other professions, athletes are often on high energy people. Jackson said sometimes this needs to be counteracted by just doing absolutely nothing. And then the last one, number 11, is it's how you play the game. As a leader, concentrating on how to win will just make you crazy, obsessive, and counterproductive. All you can really do is create the best possible conditions for success and then realize that there's nothing you can do about the outcome. Bam. Those are the 11.
Damn. I love it. Yeah, he was a mastermind. It's amazing. Growing up in New York, I don't know if a lot of folk know, but they learned it on the documentary. Phil Jackson played with the New York Knicks. And growing up in New York, as a little kid, I had 2 jerseys. It was Clyde Frazier and Phil Jackson.
Wow.
And then also, growing up, my father was from Albany, New York, upstate. And I used to go see the Albany Patroons play in the CBA when he was first starting to coach. And so I watched him go. I grew up with Phil Jackson.
Wow.
And watching his coaching style. And he was just a master. I always heard him be called the Zen master because he mentally got you prepared for the games.
Yes.
And it was just amazing. Yeah.
I love it. What are your thoughts, Emmanuel?
He's got 11 rings. It says enough about him. And I think that's one thing about Phil that personalities are tough sometimes. And he had some with dealing with the egos of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and Shaq and what they call the craziness of Dennis Rodman. One of the points that you made was when he said absolutely do nothing. Was the story in The Last Dance where they said when Rodman went out and partied all night, they didn't know where he is. He missed practice. And they was like, Phil, what are you going to do? Phil said, we're going to do nothing. We're just going to let him play.
Yeah.
He went out there with 18, 19 rebounds with 4 points. That's why he was the Zen master. He knew his team. He knew what was needed. And that's why you say what you want to. 11 rings are 11 rings. There ain't too many people that can say that.
Exactly. Right. And it's amazing, as Emmanuel, you said, he had to manage so many different personalities and understand them. He had to understand that Dennis Rodman had to be Dennis Rodman. Yeah. And then he even understood that Michael Jordan had to be Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? So when Mike needed to go away to play golf, you know what I mean? Go on and go do what you have to do. He had to let Scottie Pippen be Scottie Pippen, so he let everyone be who they were.
Yes.
And managed it. And he just did it so well. And then it translated to the Lakers and Shaq and Kobe. We can go on for days.
Yeah.
He was just a master tactician. And he just knew the game of basketball so well.
How powerful is that to just let people be who they are? I mean, we see the results of how that rolled out, and everybody exhibited their own strengths and gave and contributed based on what they had to give, on the table. Yeah. This can translate to so many different aspects of life and leadership.
Absolutely. And, another thing, he's the Zen master, but he never wanted to be in the headlines. You know what I mean? He was the wizard pulling the strings behind, you know what I mean? But he wasn't trying to be the celebrity. I don't remember any television commercials with Phil Jackson in them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now, I'm sorry, go ahead, man.
Great leaders don't want to be in the headlines. They want to lead. Absolutely. They want to be able to create greatness. And if you can create greatness, your leadership speaks for itself. And that's the one thing, unfortunately, our leadership in our country wants to be in the headlines and not be a great leader. And that's why we're having so many issues determining, like y'all were saying, about what are we doing now during the COVID-19? Go back to what y'all was saying. The reason why I watch it is because, one, it's a dangerous time for us. And two, it's a train wreck. It's a car wreck. So I'm watching both of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's the thing about Phil. Leadership usually doesn't have to come out in the forefront. Your leadership speaks for itself. That's why he was such a great coach to me. You don't have to talk.
People will sing your praises for you. and put you on the headlines and put you out there. You don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to constantly say, what our president's saying, for example, it was great. We did great. We did wonderful. It was a beautiful thing. It was, that doesn't need to be overemphasized.
Mm-mm. No, let it speak on, what you do. Let your actions speak for themselves.
Yeah.
As you said, the people will recognize greatness when we see it. We always said if you have to tell somebody you're the leader, you're probably not the leader.
It's so true.
Right. What I mean?
One piece that I really loved was the whole unified front. So one of the 11 here is become one entity. And on The Last Dance, there was a press conference in which the manager was asked, how are you dealing with all this backstabbing and so forth that's going on, within the team? And he clamped down on that. He said, first of all, there is no backstabbing. And I want you to, do you hear me?
Absolutely.
Do you hear me? There is no, so whatever is really going on, he's like, we are a unified front. And how dare you try to create this kind of segregation or inward fighting between us? No. And he ended the press conference. And I don't know if you all heard this, but somebody said, way to go, Kevin, or whoever
Jerry Krause. Yeah.
One of the hard things in the sports world to beat is a unified team. It's hard to beat. Even with the Bulls, everybody knew their role. Everybody knew. That was so great about the lad. Yeah, Michael Jordan was the guy, but Michael would say, I couldn't do it without Scotty coming out there and doing what he do. Yeah. Or Dennis going like him doing what he do. And that's why even to Judd Bushler and Steve Kerr, that was so good about the unified front, because being a former coach, I used to hate teams that everybody knew their role. Nobody was trying to be better than the other person. They all knew. Even on the football field, there's 11 positions on offense, 11 on defense. Everybody knew what their position was. That's why that's so important. Like, Dennis Rodman knew, I'm going to get you 18 rebounds. I don't have to score. Okay. Michael Jordan said, I got to score 30 points. Okay. That's what a unified team do. And it's hard to beat. That's why, when you see a fragmented team, we already know we see fragments all the time.
Yeah.
It's going to be problems.
Yeah. And one of the most powerful things that stood out to me when they highlighted the Michael Jordan Steve Kerr fight. Steve Kerr said, no one knew about it till weeks later because we kept it a secret. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Jordan,
now imagine a fight these days. Immediately, it's live on Twitter. A teammate would have put it on Twitter immediately, and it would have been a whole big thing. But they even in the uncomfortable times, they kept it closed doors. Yeah. And then Michael said, Steve gained my respect because he didn't back down.
Yeah. I mean, he called him on his way out of the building.
Yeah.
Immediately after he was told, you got to go, to apologize. He wasn't forced to, wasn't asked to. It says a lot about the culture that you've created for this team when that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, that we're accountable to one another. And even in my frustration, I should not lash out to my teammate like that. And so when I found out when I realized I did it, self-correction.
Yes.
And for a leader, that's the best thing for your team to govern themselves.
Yes. That is huge.
That's the key. That's a wonderful thing for a leader, is to see your team hold each other accountable, and you don't have to say anything.
Right.
And the thing about leadership is if you're a great leader, you begin to create leaders within as well. And he was creating leaders. Think about this. From that team, you got Michael Jordan, but Steve Kerr is a 3-time NBA head coach basketball champion. There were guys who are now John Paxson early. He's the GM of the Bulls. He created leaders within leaders. And that's great leadership to me. If you can later look back on your leadership and you've created different leaders within the organization, that's what leadership looks like to me. And if you don't have that, if you don't bring people to different levels, you can't express. That's not great leadership to me. And that's what I look for. That's why Phil's got 11 rings. That's why his book's called 11 Rings. When your book can be 11 rings, that's when you're a great leader.
I love it.
I got a question for you, Emmanuel. Why do you think that documentary at this time, and we can answer this when we come back because we got to go and we're going to come back to Balance Challenge. But I want to ask you this. Hopefully you can stay. Why do you think that documentary was so important at this time during the COVID-19? And because it just rung so heavy with everybody. I want to hear your thoughts about why do you think it was such an impact during this time. And when we're going to take a little break, but when we come back, we're going to go into the balance challenge, and then we're going to get right back with Emmanuel Glaze, and we're going to talk some more sports last dance here in the live exchange with Robert Pierce and Dr. Pam. We'll be back.
Dr. Pamela.
All right. So the balance challenge this week is I want you to think about your leadership strategy for yourself. It's interesting because when I first entered my doctoral program, we had these admissions interviews, and the admissions professor asked me, so why is it that you want to get this degree in leadership? What do you want to do with it? And it's so funny because here I am 15 years later, and I told her then I want to teach people self-leadership. We don't ever hear about that. We hear about, executive leadership and all of these leadership principles and leadership traits. We never hear about self-leadership. And that is exactly what I told her I wanted to do. I wanted to teach people self-leadership. So hello, this week's balance challenge is to, work on your strategy for self-leadership. There are places and ways in which our leadership is letting us down this week. So what I want you to do is think about how am I going to govern and lead myself and my family in spite of what's being told? We're being told we can go out into the world and do whatever it is we want, but that might not be the wisest thing for me and my family. So what is it that I'm going to decide to do in light of that? Now, there are also those of you who say, whatever, I'm going out. That's what I want to do. It's right in line with what I want to do. I still challenge you to not blindly follow what the leadership is telling you to do and to create your own agenda. That's self-leadership. What are my values? What are my principles? And what agenda am I going to create around that? So that is your homework for this week. Is I want you to determine your self-leadership strategy for the week.
I accept that challenge.
All right. We'll be back.
We'll be back. Welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Robert Pierce.
And I'm Dr. Pamela.
And we've been talking with our guest, Emmanuel Glaze. We've been talking Last Dance and sports, all things sports. And just want to continue this conversation. It's been amazing. But Emmanuel, I asked you a question prior to our break. And we've been talking The Last Dance. And, every day it's on every sports talk, radio show, TV, everything, every blog, every podcast. Why do you think this documentary hit so hard and was so important to us during this time that we're dealing with this COVID-19?
I think it was a few reasons. One, we had nothing else to watch, so we wanted to watch something that we all appreciated. And the Bulls run was so special to a lot of people. And Michael Jordan is still a big icon, so that's what made us tune in. Two, I think people just like to want to, feel greatness and feel good about something again. And this made us feel good to see a guy that basically who's been gone out of the public realm for over 20 years. We got a chance to see him again, to see Michael Jordan. We see the shoes, we see all the scenes, but we never saw Mike. Like you said before, today's time, we knew every move Michael made because of social media. Back in the 90s, everything was hearsay, and we only got what we heard from the news media. But this was a chance to see Mike in a light that we weren't used to him seeing. Everything about Mike being behind the scenes. And during this time, I thought it was a great time. I always said, ESPN, let's bring this up earlier. We need something like this right now to get our minds off of it and for it to be a great 10-part. And it was great to see as well. It was just great, well put together. It brought the timelines. We got to see Mike behind the scenes. We saw what when he lost his father, what that meant to him. All that we have all been wondering for years about Michael Jordan, we were able to finally see it one time. So that's why it was so on time. And during this time where everybody has been quarantined and can't do nothing, to see something that meant a lot to our generation, we was in the 90s. And also the new generation, they've heard of Mike. But this is what we told them about Michael Jordan, but this gave them a chance to actually see Michael Jordan and see how he played and see why he was so great. So that's why it hit everybody at the same time, that this was well done and right on time, because now when we argue with our kids who the GOAT is, and we just say, now, this is what I was telling y'all right here. This is what Michael Jordan was.
Yeah, we got some documentation now.
And that's why I was right on time. And this COVID, I hate to say it, but ESPN couldn't have released this at a better time, because it was right when people were needing something to use as a release. and sports has always been there. We haven't been able to go out and watch an event for 2 months. And this gave us a chance to go and watch an event. And this was an event, a 10-part event, 5 weeks of watching something that we've all heard or seen throughout our lifetime.
Yeah,
it was such a pleasant surprise to see Kobe. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I love how they bridge that. You know, for me, as you said, Emmanuel, growing up, I remember watching the North Carolina game when he hit the last shot in the 80s, you know, against Georgetown. Knew nothing about Michael Jordan back then, you know what I mean? Just watched this skinny kid hit this shot over my Georgetown Hoyas. You know, back then we was Hoya fans. And just to watch him come up, I remember buying my first pair of Air Jordans for $75. You know what I mean? And so, but we never knew Mike. Never felt like we knew him because, as you said, we didn't get behind the scenes. So I finally got to meet Michael Jordan. Now, let me make this disclaimer. When he was playing, he is the greatest. I could not stand him. Because he used to kill my Knicks. And I'm gonna tell you, the best part about this documentary is the worst part for me. I had to relive those moments watching how he used to destroy my Knicks. Yeah. But it felt so good.
Dr. Pam, you brought up something too I didn't even think about. We lost Kobe at the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant. So we needed something to bring us up and make us feel, you know, to see something that made us feel good. You know, like we lost Kobe. And, you know,
that's huge.
At the beginning of the year. So
that's huge. And
and, you know, Kobe, that was the bridge to the generations. Think about it. A lot of the younger folk. Kobe was their Michael Jordan.
Right.
You know what I mean? And, you know, even for the LeBron folk, the younger folk, they arguing about who's better, Kobe or LeBron. Mike isn't even in the conversation. So Kobe was the bridge. Think about it. Kobe was the bridge to say, oh, we got to go back because Mike was a beast.
After the dream team. Here comes Kobe. And then the next era, literally.
Right.
Yep. Man. So it made for almost like 3 decades of solid basketball, you know?
Yeah.
Like, whoo. Yeah.
And then what it provoked me, the NBA network started throwing on them old games on the NBA network and on the NBA ticket. So I watched a lot of them old 90s games and I was getting mad again because Mike still
why you did that to yourself.
Was still killing them Knicks.
Because you see the teaser for all the old games.
It's always, you know, the Knicks was probably the most shown opponent on that documentary, other than Detroit.
Y'all had it rough during those times.
So Charles Smith could have just hit that shot.
Wanted to Jordan beat the most during his time with the Knicks in the playoffs. So
absolutely. It was painful, but it was so fun.
But you survived.
Yeah,
did you die?
No, I wanted to, but it just it just fed me. It was like a boost of adrenaline just to get the sports back again. You know, I'm gonna be honest. I was fiending. I even found myself waking up 5 a.m. watching Korean baseball. Just to watch some live sports.
Well, you know what? Let me cut in real quick because I was just kind of looking at what is the latest, what's happening with sports right now in terms of what's opening and what's not. And what I'm seeing right now is that a lot of different sports are examining the safety of, you know, should we start now, should we not? And even the ones that have started or are thinking about starting have decided, well, we're going to just play, you know, exclusively where there's not an audience, where there's not a filled arena and so forth. The NBA is currently surveying GMs about competition formats, like what's the best way to do this. Now, and so Major League Baseball is proposing medical and safety protocols for players. And so they're putting something in place for that. And so what's interesting is that even though, let's say the state of Georgia, for example, has said, we're going to open up, we don't see the NBA and NFL saying, okay, we're all in 100%. Now they are gradually looking at, okay, we're going to maybe start playing and trying or not, you know, working out. But I don't think I've seen, and maybe you all can correct me because I've been trying to read to see where any sport is like, we're all in 100%.
No, everyone has been cautious. They're having a lot of probably daily meetings. I'm sure there's a conference call right now with minds smarter than us trying to figure this thing out. I've heard proposals of the NBA having just 2 locations, one in Vegas, one in Orlando, and everyone has to stay in a hotel. Once you're there, you're basically in a bubble. You cannot leave. There's examinations every day. I hear things with baseball as well. They're considering somewhere in Florida or Arizona just locking all the teams in. Even with the NBA considering if you was the New York Knicks and you wasn't going to make the playoffs, your season should be over. You know what I mean? If you're the Golden State Warriors, let's not talk. So they're trying to figure this out, really. And think about it. That lessens the exposure.
It does.
You know, especially for a season that was already taking place now for the seasons like NFL and all that.
Right.
They just really, but you know, it's so much contact. We really have to be careful. And again, economics drives this. No one afford a lawsuit over someone getting sick or dying over this COVID-19 because I had to fulfill a contract to play on a sport. And
Patrick just got diagnosed.
Yeah, Patrick Ewing, I saw her.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's a couple of things. Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Pam.
No, go ahead.
A couple of things that they've been monitoring. I know everybody's not big knowing that wrestling is pro wrestling is a show, but it's also a contact sport. And for the past 2 months, the world of professional wrestling has been working in Florida with different promotions. So they've been monitoring that. They've, like you said, NASCAR started getting into it. But I think the biggest thing is that it's going to be a trust factor, not only with the players on the field, but the fans as well. So Cream does cash rules everything around me. Sorry to go to old Wu-Tang reference.
Yeah, no doubt. Wu-Tang forever.
People is going to drive it to see because the TV stations have put billions of dollars into these sports. They want some sort of return from it. Yeah. So I expect by late June, you'll start seeing the sports in the NBA going to try to do something. But I think, like you said, if I'm a Hawks fan, we're out of it. So why even bring us back in? Let's get the top 4 and bring them in. Baseball has to be fun because it's not a contact sport. It's a sport where you already have a social distancing type feel to it. So they're going to slowly get in it to where if you can put it on TV and people can watch it, maybe they'll start getting the fans and building that confidence back that's being missed. But anyway, if we can just watch sports like they showed with The Last Dance, people are craving sports. So they're trying to find a way to be able to bring it out. So I expect in June and July, like you said, college sports have already said June 1st, they're opening the campuses back up to allow activity from college sports. So you're going to start seeing campuses around the country open up to allow students who are athletes to come on and start working out and doing things like that. So it'll slowly get back in. I just think the new norm going to be some empty stadiums for a while, like we've seen overseas in Korea and soccer overseas, and then to where we have to rebuild the confidence. But again, I don't want to be that guy. We don't have the confidence of the nation right now. So sports kind of have to lead the way to bring a confidence to people. So, yeah.
I think sports is doing a much better job of leading the way. It might be not be perfect, but I kind of appreciate the gradual the meetings and all of that. But,
and I'm even watching the golf tournament right now with Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson. They're doing tremendously on social distancing and all that. I'm literally watching it right now. And so I'm sorry, I just wanted to get that in there.
No, that's good. All right. Well, unfortunately, the first hour, we are done. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for joining us. How can we reach you quickly?
Hey, you can check me out, Emmanuel_Glaze on Instagram, the Crush Sports Network on Instagram and Facebook, and Optimize Division on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all that as well. So just find me, Emmanuel Glaze.
You'll find him. If you look, you will find him.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Man, it's always a pleasure, my brother.
It's been great. Always love talking sports. And we are, the next hour, we're going to have Dr. Shadeiyah come on, and she's going to talk to us about some parenting. So
we'll be back. We got to talk sports again more often. Let's do this quicker. Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to the second hour of the live exchange. I'm Dr. Pamela.
I'm Robert Pierce.
And today we are talking about what happens when the leadership fails. We just need to lead ourselves.
Lead ourselves, yeah.
We gotta, figure out what is it that we need to do to make sure that we are okay and that our families are okay. The first half of the hour, we were joined by Emmanuel Glaze, sports analyst, owner of Optimize the Vision, and really just kind of looked at the ways in which the sports industry is really kind of blazing the path and paving the way for how we should be, from a leadership standpoint, addressing, some of these things. They're not perfect, maybe some things are happening too early, but
but they're asking the right questions. They're having that dialogue and trying to get all the possibilities on the table before they make a good decision. Yes. And that's sound leadership. Get the facts before you make decisions.
Right. Well, tell us about this golf tournament that you have the pleasure of witnessing right now and how they are doing it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is a charity golf tournament. Capital One is sponsoring it. It's between Tiger Woods and Phil Mickelson, both PGA. Yeah. We all know Tiger Woods, right? But they have partners. They're playing a 4-man tournament. It's Tiger Woods and Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning versus Phil Mickelson against future Hall of Fame quarterback Tom Brady. They're down in Florida. It's amazing how they're doing this. This is totally the epitome of social distancing. The commentators, one of the commentators is Samuel Jackson. Yeah, he's sitting in his home commentating. Charles Barkley, some other pros. Everyone is in their own golf cart. No one is standing next to each other. No one is touching each other's ball. You're not allowed to high five, anything.
You can't touch another ball either?
No, you only could touch your ball.
Okay.
Yeah. You can't do anything. Everyone's so far away from one another, and they're having a good time.
Nice.
And so they're showing that we can still resume our normal activities, but just incorporate social distancing.
That's right.
It can be done if you are intentional about doing it. Is being proven. So I'm excited to see sports slowly or surely come back. And I believe NASCAR is coming back. If it's not this week,
I saw that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In full
but
force.
There'll be no fans.
Without the fans. Yeah. So very interesting. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways that I see, that the leadership within sports is handling it well. Sports has always been a model for me anyway. Even from childhood, I've just learned a lot of principles, a lot of discipline, character traits through sports. And so I appreciate seeing this on a larger scale.
Yeah, it was sports that honestly saved my life. Coach Dave Nelson, if you're listening, shout out to Coach Dave Nelson, who took some kids from the ghetto, from the hood, and made a basketball team and took us out our neighborhood and showed us something different.
Wow. Let me shout out my coach.
Yeah,
Coach Woods. Do. I did not like that man. He was our basketball coach. We were the state champ or the league. No, the state champs. Now I'm exaggerating. We were the league champs. Okay. And that man worked us so hard. I did not like him.
Yeah.
I love him now because I have the same work ethic now that I developed being on that man's basketball team. I mean, he did not play. And if everybody on the team did not make a certain time frame, did not, somebody was late, we all had to pay for that person. And so it was just, so when I run and I do things and I push myself harder, it's because of him. He really, I didn't like him.
Same with my coach, Dave Nelson. He pushed us, he challenged us. He was the one who made us go to school because if we didn't go to school, we couldn't play. That got me looking at college because we started seeing college, you know what I mean? And it's Dave Nelson. And so I thank him so much. Sports saved my life. It really did. Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to cut in because I don't know if you all know, but when we come back, we're going to have Dr. Shadeiyah, or she's going to be joining us.
Yeah, we got another guest. I'm sorry.
Yes, we're going to talk co-parenting. So I just wanted to cut in and say that before you.
I'm sorry. You got me on sports. You should have did the co-parenting first. I got to shift now. Okay, I got to be cool. Shift. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Robert Pierce.
And I'm Dr. Pamela.
And on the last hour, we just wrapped up our conversation. We had a sports conversation. We're just talking about when leadership isn't doing what they should be doing, you have to lead yourself. And we had our guest, Emmanuel Glaze, a sports analyst. We talked about The Last Dance, and we just had a good conversation about the impact of sports and how it's playing during this time with COVID-19. And as we're transitioning to open back the country, how sports is leading the way on just taking precautions. And unfortunately, our government isn't doing the same. And so it's important today that we govern ourselves. But Dr. Pam, we're going to transition from there. And we have another guest, and we're going to talk about co-parenting now, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about co-parenting.
Yes. So we are going to be joined by Dr. Shadeiyah Edwards, and she is an expert in parenting and co-parenting. And what better person to have to the table to talk about this in light of COVID than Dr. Shadeiyah. So let's bring her on.
Yes, let's bring her on.
Hello there. Hi,
Hello.
Dr. Shadeiyah. Am I saying your name correctly?
Shadeiyah.
Okay.
Yes, but you were really, really close.
Okay.
Dr. Shadeiyah.
I
Okay,
love
got
it. That's even more beautiful than what I was saying. So I love it.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your willingness to join us. I'm really excited about this topic, and partially because I'm a life coach, which is, different than what you do. And I've had so many people reach out to me and ask me, how do I do this? And have had people forward me articles about lawsuits and so forth that have happened when one parent is parenting one way and the other parent maybe is perceived by the other to be in danger.
Right.
And so I'll give a little bit more about one specific case, but let me first introduce you.
Okay.
So Dr. Shadeiyah is a mother, speaker, psychology professor, author, and entrepreneur. She specializes in stress management and parenting, two things we really need right now, utilizing her clinical academic skills and real life experiences to empower mothers to live a more balanced life. Dr. Shadeiyah has over 18 years of experience in the mental health field. She understands juggling schedules, balancing motherhood and career. She has a commitment to working with parents to assist with building and maintaining healthy and positive relationships with their children. She also works with parents that struggle to co-parent effectively. So welcome, Dr. Shadeiyah.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys.
Yes, no problem. I am following her on Instagram, and she posted, her bio and her speaking, and I'm like, wait a minute, we need this woman on our show.
Yeah.
So I inboxed her, and she said, yes, I love it.
Yes.
So I appreciate that. I'm curious to know, kind of the scope of what you're doing, and also, if you can clarify the difference between, because I noticed that you have a PsyD, that's psychiatry, right?
Yeah. No, it's
psychology.
Doctor of Psychology.
Doctor of Psychology. Okay.
Yes.
Because I was thinking, oh gosh, is she a psychiatrist? And I call her a psychologist, and I don't know the difference. So got it. So we got it right then.
Yes. Okay. You did.
Okay. So is there anything, if you might want to just kind of share how people might be reaching out to you nowadays in light of COVID and what you're doing with co-parenting and stress?
Yes. So I have been getting a lot of people reaching out to me through social media, any way they could get to me. And it's been about relationships, period. Whoever they're in the home with their children, those that are co-parenting, who kid are going in between homes, those that are home with their husband or wives, and they're figuring out like, I don't know if I could do that. Yes.
Yeah.
You guys would not believe how many people are really struggling in their marriages right now. It's so many. So if you're struggling in your marriage, you're also struggling with the parenting. So it's just not the single family homes. It's also the parenting inside the home.
And the kids are seeing all of it now. It's
all
not like they're at school and you guys are fighting. Wow.
Exactly. So it's so many different levels to what's going on in people's homes and outside the home. And I think most people are thinking like, oh, those single families, that's divorced. No, just actually even parenting inside the home is a struggle for people right now as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I am officially making a shift. We're going to talk about both. Are you good with that, Robert? Are you good with that, Dr. Shadeiyah?
Yeah.
Yes,
In the
let's go for it.
co-parenting, it just sounds like we need
You
to
know,
talk
I never even thought about the two parents in the home and the struggles with parenting. It just came to me, just homeschooling a child and teaching styles. You know, that could set it off real quick. One
Mhm.
person is a little shorter than the other with the child, and that could turn into something real
Oh,
big.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes,
yeah.
and we don't even want to really get into the people that are living in toxic environments.
Yeah.
So we have children and families that are living in abusive households. So just imagine being home every day in that.
Mm.
Nobody is getting to go out. So it's constantly all day. So coming out of this, it's going to be a lot of trauma, a lot of complex trauma going on for these children, these families. Everybody going to need therapy.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, yes.
I mean, we
couldn't
all need it just from being in the house.
Just in
Yeah.
general,
I
in a
could
healthy
imagine.
house.
I would imagine that there are some families that went into this healthy, and now they're going to come out
Yes.
a whole
Or
nother.
healthy.
Yeah,
You know what I
but
mean?
you know,
They thought
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going to come out a
definitely.
whole nother way. And so a household may not have been toxic prior. Now it's toxic because of the close. Wow.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow. Did we get the signal? Are we going to break?
I've been locked in this conversation. I don't know. She got me.
I think I hear the music, but I don't. I
Yeah,
didn't
Doc, you got me now.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think we might be going to break because I hear the music. So we're going to go ahead and go to break. And when we come back to Dr. Shadeiyah, I would love for you to kind of just give us an idea of what people are saying to you, like who's calling, the wives or the husbands or what are they saying? And then we'll just dig a little bit more deeply into that.
Okay.
So
We'll
stay
be
with
back.
Yes.
All right. So the science today is brought to you by Shalon Willis Beauty Architect. She is the official makeup artist of the Live Exchange, and she is usually responsible for the look on my face. But she's taught me a few things. So while we are in this whole sheltering thing, I didn't put my lashes on, you guys. Like this is huge. So and they're not falling off. The first show was ringing, but I think I got it this time.
You got it now.
Yes, Shalon does beauty demonstrations live on Instagram and Facebook on Tuesdays. Definitely check her out. She is Beauty Architect on all social media outlets. So she is definitely a great resource for those of us who like to get on camera, even in spite of the.
She's a great person.
She is a great person. She's amazing.
Really is.
So today's research comes from healthline.com, and it's really looking at parenting and co-parenting, but really more specifically, it's looking at co-parenting with a narcissist. Ooh.
Oh boy.
Tips for making it work, yes, and that's always a challenge. And Dr. Shadeiyah, in just maybe like 10 seconds, can you just tell everybody what a narcissist is, and then I'll give the fact of this article.
So dealing with a narcissist is dealing with someone that is, in layman terms, that makes everything about themselves. So everything is about them. They are very controlling, and they need a lot of validation.
Okay.
And the moment you're not validating them or treating them like they're this magical god per se, they will kind of just push you away. They need somebody constantly validating them.
That sounds interesting.
Yes. So their sense of self-grandiosity is on another level. Yes.
Really up there.
Wow.
And then I think, is it also that they don't even know it, or that they don't really, or do they know it?
Some of them do.
Okay.
And I'm going to say a lot of them do.
Okay.
Now, will they admit to being narcissistic?
I think that's more
probably not.
So there's a difference in knowing and admitting it.
Yes,
admitting it, right?
Yes, admitting it. Yes.
Well, it's good to know that they know it, and then and they're not admitting it. I mean, that's good to know.
Right.
So characterizations of narcissistic personality, according to this article, also includes, in line with what you said, an inflated sense of importance, an excessive need for attention, a history of turbulent relationships, a fundamental lack of empathy for the people around them. So just imagine this in terms of parenting, and not only just parenting, but now you've got to collaborate with them as a co-parent. And so there's in this article, Melanie Tonya Evans, she's the author of You Can Thrive After Narcissistic Abuse. She explains that your ex may even try to use your kids against you. So that's common. She further explains that along with conflicts, you may experience a number of other challenges that include not agreeing to custody and other arrangements, making you take it all the way to the top of the courts. We're fighting this all the way. Yeah. Not acting nice or agreeable for your child's sake. And interfering with your child's routine or appointments or belongings, maybe not showing up for something or not bringing the kid back, but all for the purpose of, you're going to see me, you're going to see my disruption. You're going to experience this. And so some tips that the article gives is, number one, establish a legal parenting plan. Yes. Legal is key, and I don't always advocate for that, because some parents really know how to interact and collaborate amongst themselves. But a legal parenting plan is going to be important, because if they fall into a narcissistic state, that agreed upon plan is going to go right out the window. So you need something legal. Take advantage of court services. That's right in line with that. Maintain firm boundaries. And this is something I am going to have to ask you, Dr. Shadeiyah, how do you maintain firm boundaries, with a parent like that?
And you said something very, very important. That custody order is there in place for a reason. Make sure you have it. I also do parenting plans that maps out everything for the child and the parent. And not that they always stick to it, but at least you have it. And it's a legal binding agreement. Mediators. If you need a mediator, it's important you could get, like you said, from the court, you could get a court mediator. Boundaries. Now, when it comes to boundaries, I've worked with a few divorced families that is the father. Sorry, Robert, but it was the father that was the narcissist. Okay. And when I say sticking to when you're dealing with a narcissist, you really have to be ready to go on a ride with them. So first, you need to be emotionally and psychologically prepared for this. So I always say, get therapy. Have you a therapist, somebody that you can talk this out with, because a lot of times they are feeling so belittled. And most women that date or marry narcissists usually come out of this low self-worth, low self-esteem. Yeah. So in that controlling piece of it, so you have to really scale back. If it has nothing to do with your child, there's no conversations to be had. And if you can't have a very logical and respectful conversation with me face to face or over the phone, then we could do text message. And actually the courts have a text message app that families can use. Wow. Yes. So so they could do the exchange that way. So those are some of the things that you could set boundaries on. And when you feel like that conversation is turning away from the kids, you excuse yourself from that conversation. Yes. So, and those are things that I always tell my clients, you don't fall into it, because that's what they like. So the moment they trigger you, they got you right where they want you. You
gotta let it go.
Wow. You have to let it go. And that's where
therapy comes in, because without therapy, you're still trying to plead your case about things that have nothing to do with the kids.
Yes, and that's how everybody, and even people that don't co-parent with a narcissist, when you aren't able to set your emotions aside as the adults, it starts to affect the way you co-parent, right? So you have to figure out a way to co-parent, especially in a narcissistic relationship. And setting boundaries is going to be the best thing. It's going to be hard for the narcissist because they don't like boundaries, but you're going to have to set them. So they can't come to your house whenever they want to. They can't call whenever they want to. whoever has primary custody, however that court order is set up, make them follow it to a T.
Gotcha. Well, this is a great conversation, and when we're going to come back shortly with Dr. Shadeiyah and talk more about the co-parenting. I'm locked in. I'm excited, and we'll be back here at the live exchange with Robert Pierce and Dr. Pam.
All right.
Welcome back to the live exchange. I'm Robert Pierce.
And I'm Dr. Pamela.
And we're back here with our guest, Dr. Shadeiyah, a doctor of psychology. Did I get that right? Psychology,
Yes.
Right? Amen. And we've been talking about co-parenting during this COVID-19 pandemic. As a lot of you may not know that some people are struggling right now with co-parenting, whether they're a single family, someone single home, single parent mother, single father, or whether there's two parents in the home. There's some challenges that people are facing, and that's what we're talking about today. And so, Dr. Shadeiyah, as you was talking before you came on, and I just want to continue on the conversation about the challenges that we're seeing and some of the cases that you're seeing. So let me just sit back and listen. I'm learning a lot. So thank you.
And just so we're clear, is it Dr. Shadeiyah? Dr.
Shadeiyah.
Shadeiyah. Okay.
Shadeiyah. I'm sorry. I said Shadeiyah. Shadeiyah. Please forgive me.
Yeah, no,
I'm sorry.
I want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and there were just a couple of more points from this article, Parenting with Empathy. Yeah. Empathy, of course, for your child, making sure that you are relating to their what they're dealing with and what they're going through. This is a huge one. Avoid speaking ill of the other parent in front of the kid. Yes. We hear that often. Avoiding emotional arguments and of course, and you've already kind of said some of the other stuff, but you had mentioned something about documenting everything, keeping records.
Yes, keep records. So that is very, very important. So if anything goes out of that court order, or even for the parents that actually have a very stable relationship, and you guys make some changes during this COVID-19, just make sure you document it, that it shows that you guys have mutually agreed. For the ones that's parenting with a narcissist, so you could keep track of everything that's been going on. So if you have to go back into court, you have everything, every exchange that is going on. I had a mother that was going through that, and the father, he was leaving the nastiest emails, long books. Wow. And I told her, keep everything. So when you walk back into court, you have the documentation. So document. That is a big one. Just to make sure to cover everything, cover both ends.
And to be clear, the context that we're speaking is in the case of a narcissist, when you're co-parenting with a narcissist, or if you have some kind of court order, if you have some kind of
court orders.
Yeah. You have court. So what happens, with people who maybe don't have formal court orders, and Robert had alluded to, there's a lot of different challenges that you've mentioned that you see with parents. Could you speak to that?
Yeah. So I'm like I was saying earlier, so those that don't have court orders, like I'm a parent that don't have a court order, right?
I am too. Yeah.
And so being able to just really be on the same page. If you guys could be on the same page and figure out where if the child is going to go in between homes, then what are you doing to protect yourself from the virus? Right. That's a conversation first to be had. Like for me, my son father has to work outside of his home. So we make sure that my son stays with me because I'm working in the home. So I don't really go out much. And that's something we agreed upon. So if it's that way, then this is why we have Zoom, we have FaceTime. Keep communication going for the child, not only with the other parent, but also friends, families, keeping them engaged in something is going to really help you as the parent, because what we're finding out is a lot of parents were not prepared. And I've said in meetings for schools, a lot of parents were not prepared for all this electronics. They don't know how to use Google Classroom. They don't know how to do any of this stuff, right? So that's a frustration in itself for a lot of parents. you alluded to something earlier. Parents have different parenting styles.
Ooh.
So one may be a little bit more structured, one may be a little bit more flexible. So if they aren't on the same page, they're going to clash.
Yeah. And this is whether they're in the home together or
not.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And then we have to forget, in the middle of that is the child. So something that has been coming up where some of the schools aren't really providing work for families, for their kids. I've been hearing so many different stories with schools. So my thing is, you can print some stuff off online. Another thing I've been hearing is they're trying to stay to the structure. You guys do away with that. I'm sorry. You can have some structure, but all that, okay, they need to be up at 6:30 like they're going to school. Have some flexibility for these kids because they're stressed.
Yeah.
For one, they have to be in the home with you all day.
All day. Right. And we don't even think about the gravity of that.
That's big. They need time away from us too. We always think we're the ones that need breaks. These kids need a break. One thing, and I say personally that I've done, is I allow my son to sleep in. That not only helps him, but it helps me. So in the morning, I can start my day. I like to meditate, pray. I do all these things in the morning. And just so I can be zen and ready for what's coming with him. Right. So now when he wakes up, I already have breakfast done, everything. Now we could get him started on his day and his homework. Another suggestion would be to calendar everything. So just like we keep our calendars for our business, work, do the same with your kids. Yeah. That eases some stress, just so both of you guys are parents, everybody in the home could know what's coming up the next day. So you're prepared for the next day, right? Right. That's something that I've been finding that parents are really stressed about and just not understanding the homework.
Well, so I have to come back to the whole sleeping in thing, because, you know, a lot of parents who are strict and they've got these schedules, they, you know, it's no, you're going to get up at this time every day and so forth. And so it feels very affirming and really permission to hear it from you to say, no, it's okay for them to sleep in, because this is part of your mental health as a parent, and it's their mental health as a child. To you know, they need that rest. They do. They really do. And it's okay. It's about flexibility right now. We're all going through a crisis. So why add extra stress on yourself if you don't have to? That's so good. And on the kid, right? That's so good. That's so good, because you know how stressed you're going to be if you tell them 7 in the morning, time to get up. That alone, I'm stressed just saying that.
Pulling them out the bed and dragging them out, and
exactly. And I always have even before this, anytime I work with parents, I always tell them to wake up at least an hour early before your child wakes up. You need to get in the right and correct mental space before you even deal with them. Yeah. Because, sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. I was going to say, because everything, I notice a lot of parents are rushing them in the morning, because kids lag in the morning. What kids like getting up, right? So they're lagging and they're rushing, and guess who's getting stressed and who may lash out? The parent. Yes. Right. Oh, that's so good.
You're not even going nowhere. You're staying home. Why are we stressing about?
Chill out. Right. And I don't have to say I'm spoiled, because the script has been kind of flipped a bit in this household. It's just my daughter and myself, and when school was in, would get up, get dressed, come knock on my door. Mom, I'm dressed and ready to go. She's middle school. I'm gonna go ahead and catch the bus. Give me a hug, kiss, and I'm like, okay, baby, and I'd be asleep. And so it's flipped, because now I'm up before her and I'm doing my morning routine, and she's in bed. But it's a very different dynamic, and I welcome that, because it's what we each need to do to survive this.
Exactly. Definitely. I agree with you 100%. You have to do what works for your household.
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's the only way we're going to come out of this, because we're going into summer. So we're about to be in the house for the summer with our kids. So camp is out.
Right. They have virtual camps, but that's not much different than school virtually.
Exactly. Yeah. So you have to prepare for the summer now.
Yeah.
So that transition. So what are you going to do during the summer days with them?
Right.
Because they can't do sports. They can't. And my son plays sports. So that was our thing in the summer. Yeah. So now everything is changing for us.
Right. So a question with regards to the co-parenting piece, you know, you've talked about, you know, the structure of your household and how it's going to work. Let's say it's completely different in another parent's household. And so now you're sending your kid from this one situation to the other, or maybe the parent, you know, you're home and you're doing your stuff. The other parent, they're home sometimes, and maybe they're, you know, but they're not really following the same procedures you are. Looks like we have to go to break, but that'll be the question on the table.
Okay.
I like that question. That was going to be my question.
Okay.
So
stay with us.
Okay.
We'll be back.
Keeping Your Balance with Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela. Dr. Pamela.
All right. So this week's balance challenge. I love it. Robert's watching golf, so you know.
Yeah, I'm having a ball.
Okay. So this week's balance challenge is based on the overall topic of the show, which is really when leadership fails, govern yourselves, lead yourselves. And this can apply to the leadership of our government, the leadership of our co-parent, the leadership in our home, whatever is happening. We've got to find ways to lead ourselves through whatever it is that we're going through. So leading ourselves, my challenge for you this week. And if we look at it from the lens of parenthood, I challenge you to, what is the word? To when they go low, you go high, to find ways to go high, to be a leader of yourself, despite what's going on. Now, I know that there are some situations that are extremely difficult to cope with. And so what does that mean for you? And what are the strategies you need to do to lead yourself out of that situation or through that situation? And so my challenge for you this week is how to be a leader of yourself through whatever the situation is that you're trying to deal with. So that is my challenge for you this week. How do you become a leader of yourself? So that's the balance challenge. We'll be back.
Welcome back to the Live Exchange. I'm Robert Pierce.
I'm Dr. Pamela.
And we're here with Dr. Shadeiyah. She's a psychologist, and we're talking co-parenting in the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges. And we've been having a wonderful conversation. And so I'm going to step back. And Dr. Pam, you was asking Dr. Shadeiyah a question before our break. So I'm going to fall back and let's go.
Okay, well, so Dr. Shadeiyah, one of the questions, I guess the concerns that I have is when you are a parent who may be following certain procedures for COVID, and you're co-parenting with a parent who does not necessarily, and I'm not saying they're out partying and they're doing, you know, maybe they're not that extreme, but they're not necessarily, they're still doing things that you think might put your family and your household in danger. I'm going to give 2 examples before I let you answer that question. So Texas family law attorney Susan Myers recently advised a couple struggling to keep their shared custody schedule during the corona pandemic. The father, who lives in Louisiana, wanted to pick his child up from the mother's house in Texas. But the father left Louisiana, a hot spot for the virus. He would have to quarantine in Texas for 14 days. So Myers suggested the parents meet at the border to avoid the 2-week quarantine. But the fact that still remains is that the father is still in a very high hotspot area. In another case in Florida, a mom lost custody of her child because she is a medical professional and she's frontline, she's a nurse, I believe, and she has to go to work every day. And the father was not comfortable with that and took the case to court so that his daughter can stay with him. And he won and she lost custody. What I don't know is if she lost custody permanently or if it was just for this time being. But anyway, so I'm just curious to know your thoughts on those kinds of challenges.
So things like that, I think with co-parenting, you have to communicate, right? Communication is key. And when I say communication, not demanding, you can't be demanding. You can't be like rude about it.
Right.
What needs to happen is understanding that both homes are connected. Even though both parents aren't living in the home, have that conversation. Our homes are connected.
Yeah.
So we have to be on the same page as far as our social distancing and how we're going to quarantine, and always make it about the child, the safety of the child. We have to remember, and even if that's going, you know, looking at what's on the news and articles, you know, talk about, you know, what you've seen that's going on where you live, if you guys live in separate states. So use what's going on in the news to kind of help facilitate that discussion. Keep up on the health news. So maybe that can, you know, generate a better discussion. Well, this is what they're saying that's going on over here in my state, you know, and I also took the liberty to see what's going on in yours, because again, remember, we're connected. Yeah. And take that away. And this is something that we teach people with anger management and conflict resolution is do less of I statement. Excuse me, do more of I statements.
Okay.
You know, don't make the other person feel like their back is up against the wall, and don't make the other parent feel like they're not a part of the decision making.
Right.
In those cases, it seemed like it kind of went to the point where they needed to have the court step in.
Yeah.
And it can get that extreme. So if it gets to the point where you guys can't come to a resolution on your own, then you need to bring the court in. Definitely.
And that was, you know, of course, all I could do is speculate about what happened. So, for example, in the court case with the mother who, you know, is a nurse and she's working, and I'm sure that's a really tough situation, because what we don't know is, you know, perhaps, you know, why didn't the mother want the child to go to the father while,
right, yeah,
if, you know, maybe that would be the safest thing, but we don't know the situation, you know, perhaps in the father's house. So maybe that was a tougher decision than to simply say, no, go ahead, keep the kid while I am working lines. That would complicate, you know, a lot of things. And on the other hand, it could have been completely ego. Like, no, this is my child. I'm gonna have my child, you know.
Right.
So it really could have gone either way. In both cases, that's extremely challenging.
It is.
Yeah, definitely. It is, co-parenting is just a challenge until you really figure out how to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And do what's in the best interest of the child, and know that you guys aren't enemies. You guys are on the same team. We're just not together anymore. We're single men and women, but we are co-parenters. So we are a team until we raise this child.
Have you successfully ushered a family who is at odds into becoming a team? And what does that look like? Because that's hard.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And one thing, Dr. Pamela, is once they take their stuff out of it and do the healing, whatever happened on why they didn't make it is a lot of times comes into their parenting issues. So now, and then taking your kid out the middle. It's not a triangle. You two are the parents. Don't put the kid in the middle of their parents. That's a whole nother issue. We can have a whole discussion on that. It's so many kids that fall in the middle of their parents, and that's not good for their mental health. So yes, I have. And that was one of the things, is recognizing if you're feeling bitter, if you're feeling whatever happened in that relationship, you got to do the healing from that. Once you do the healing from that, and you recognize, because sometimes it's easy to say, like, put the kid first, but when you have all these emotions going on, sometimes you can't even fathom that part, right?
Yeah,
right. So you have to do the healing and forgiveness. Forgiveness is huge, and forgiveness is not about them. It's not for the other person. It's for you to take your power back.
Amen.
Yes. Because that's how you're going to be effective for your child. You guys are raising a whole child for 18 plus years together. And if you don't want your child sitting in a therapy room for you guys not taking care of yourselves, you're going to be paying for your child to go to therapy.
Right. And you said 18 plus years. My son is 24, and I heard from his father the other day, and I'm like, wait a minute, we done raising him, right?
Your son is in college.
Yeah, why am I hearing from you? No, I'm just kidding. But
it is, and it takes an emotional toll, and it takes a real mature individual to be like, you know what, I do need to heal from this because it's going to affect my child if I don't.
And you know, we're getting close to the end, but I want to make sure you touch on this about parents who are still in the household together, because this applies to them too as well, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Deal with their stuff while they're in the household, you know?
Oh yes, that has actually come up a few times, and just recently I had a mom that I was working with because of that same thing, her and her husband not getting along. So they have layers. They have relationship problems, and then their co-parent they've never been able to co-parent in a house together. They have different views of parenting. And for me, they needed to go back and understand how they were parented, because a lot of times we need to track back and we need to understand our trauma. We bring trauma into two people that have been in childhood, who've experienced childhood trauma. They connect, and it's toxic.
That's a train wreck.
That's a whole show. It's about 3 minutes.
Right, that's a whole show.
It's a whole show, right? Oh my God!
Now you're stuck in the house. So now you guys need to get on some virtual therapy. You guys need to nip this in the bud, because right now you're stuck unless somebody's going to leave. If not, it's going to affect the child.
Right.
And I'm always big on that. Kids don't thrive in toxicity. They don't. Right?
Right.
My goodness. Okay. So just gave me a new show idea when trauma.
Oh, you're getting me fueled up now.
Yeah.
We're going to do a show with collide or attract or whatever.
Yes.
So
that childhood trauma is big.
And the adulthood trauma, you know, there's all this work on ACEs, which is powerful work. But man, there is a thing called adulthood trauma too.
Oh yeah, because we bring in that baggage from our childhood.
Yeah, well, all my trauma came from adulthood. It's like, whoa, as soon as I left my parents' house, trauma, stuff happens, you know? And so
it goes throughout our life, right? And the only difference is people that have coping skills and don't.
Right. Yeah.
Versus, are you saying something?
Yeah, I was saying I saw this actually, like this one thing was just like, were you guys actually attracted to each other, or do you guys share traumatic experiences? And I was like,
we're doing a whole show on it now. It's gonna happen. And we're gonna call you back, Shadeiyah.
Yes.
We're gonna call you because
let's get your schedule,
it's
get
my
you on
favorite
there.
topic to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling it, like, so yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. But no, so we are getting close to the end, but I want to ask you just, you know, how do families, because look, you're talking about the families who've reached out. You're talking about the people who have made it known. How do families know that what we're doing in this house is not normal? Like, this is a little bit beyond what we should be dealing with. We need help. How do they recognize that in themselves? And then how do people reach out to you or somebody like you?
Right. Ways to recognize it: if you guys are maybe arguing more, or you guys are ignoring each other, any type of changes that have happened that is not positive, that's a sign that something is going on. If that's not the norm in your household, right? And that's when it's time to either, you know, reach out to somebody online, ask for referrals. Most people have social media, you know, look into even a coach, a therapist, whatever you need. Reach out to somebody.
Start somewhere.
Start somewhere. Yes.
So how can they reach out to you, Dr. Shadeiyah?
Yeah. So I am on all social media under Dr. Shadeiyah is one word. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can find me everywhere. I have a website. It's DrEdwards.com. And you can email me, and that's info@drsedwards.com.
All right, there you go.
Social media, you can find me on social media at Dr. Shadeiyah.
And for those of you who are not watching visually, or you're watching on, or you're listening from the TuneIn satellite network, it's SHADEIYAH.
Oh, yes, thank you.
DEIYAH. Yes. So, wow, this was a powerful show. My goodness, so much good information. Thank you so much for joining us,
You're
Dr.
welcome,
Shadeiyah.
you guys. Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to serve your community.
Absolutely. We're probably going to have you back in a couple of weeks, so I hope you're ready.
Yes.
Clear schedule.
Bring me back.
All right.
I enjoyed this.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again, everybody, for listening. And be sure to check us out every Sunday from 6 to 8 p.m. right here on Sensation Station Network, also on TuneIn Radio. My name is Dr. Pamela.
I'm Robert Pierce.
And remember, when we dialogue better,
we do better.
All right.
Talk to you next week. Have a blessed week, everyone.